what can we do to stop this? And I don't know if there's an answer. At least I don't have an answer. Long-term treatment, education has got to be what starts. We have to start with our kids and say, you know that stuff in the medicine cabinet? It's not good for us. The aspirin or whatever, it's not good for us. And if parents realize that I don't use this prescription anymore, police departments have places that you can take your old drugs to, get them out of the house, get them out of the availability, and then concentrate on letting folks know, as we're doing today, that this stuff is killing our community day in and day out.
So Narcan is a drug called naloxone. Narcan is the trade name, obviously, for it. We used to use much smaller doses than what we're using today because the drugs that we're seeing today are much more potent. The way that it works is Narcan releases the opiate off the receptors. The thing to know is that it isn't an instant fix. So there's a couple different ways that it can be given. If you're a regular community member, you're not with any medical or EMS, then the typical way you give it is intranasally. So you can get Narcan even without a prescription. You just go to the pharmacy and ask for it. However, you need to know that if you need it, you need to give some rescue breaths, get on the phone, call 911, because it can take 20 minutes for it to be fully effective. So if you see somebody who you're concerned about, who's turning blue, not breathing, give the Narcan, do the rescue breaths, and call for help.
So now we have Narcan available. We saw where 1 or 2 administrations of Narcan save people. Now with the potency of the drugs on the street, we're seeing the administration of 10, 12, 14 kits of Narcan to save somebody. Why is that? Because we don't have heroin and we don't have just fentanyl. We have carfentanil and some of the other analogs of fentanyl that are, again, so incredibly potent that it's just killing people.
We've authorized our on-duty battalion chiefs and our crews to call for additional services so that we can even send more drug bags to an incident to have enough Narcan on scene to administer and revive these patients. We have increased the amount of Narcan in our drug bags from 4 from last year to 6 doses due to the increased use of fentanyl and carfentanil in the heroin. Narcan is available for those family members that feel that they have a family member using or abusing drugs through the Project Dawn program.
Sometimes addiction does start with prescription pain medications. It doesn't always start that way. The thing that we as a community just need to be cognizant of is that every prescription should have a good reason for it. If there's something that's needed for pain, we should be taking the lowest dose possible for the shortest period of time. Because beyond that, you're starting to develop what is called tolerance. And so now you need higher and higher doses, and you need more of that medication. And you know, that's unique to some medications. There are very safe medications that can be used for pain. We should be choosing those first. We've developed and used a program that we call Think Twice. It allows the provider to think through, what can I give this patient instead of opiates or something that's addictive in any way? And it gives them an alternative. So we've put it in a very nice visual format. How do we keep you safe? How do we keep the drugs out of your household so that your family is safe? And how do we get people to think through then the next step? If you are being seen at a physician's office and they're offering you this prescription, have you asked the right question? Is that going to be potentially addictive to me or anyone in my family? And are there alternatives? So thinking twice, that's what we're all about. Think twice, try to avoid those things that are addictive.
My name is Vicki Karaher. I'm the Senior Service Coordinator for the City of Kettering. One of the issues that I'm seeing because of the opioid epidemic is many of our seniors are very vulnerable. They have individuals who have access to their medication supplies and the instances of abuse are very high. So those individuals may have access to their medicine cabinet. They may start out by taking 1 or 2 medications, and then eventually they start taking larger amounts. And that individual is unable to get more medications because those are very closely regulated. And the elderly person may be unable to get more medication and have severe decline in their ability to assist themselves and help. Plus, they also have that added fear that they have done something that would allow their loved one to become close to having a real issue with drugs. Over 3,000 people each day in the United States take prescription drugs that aren't their prescription drugs. And so there's a lot of guilt on the part of the senior that they feel like maybe it was their fault. So it's always a good thing for an individual to make sure you're locking up your medications. You can get medication lock boxes anywhere. Keep your drugs locked in those boxes. Store the boxes out of the way of an individual so they're not seen. Keep the key separate from the box or on the person. You want to protect yourself not only from people coming into your home, contractors or caregivers, but also make sure that your youth and some family members remove that temptation from them as well. Most individuals who have a problem with drug addiction started by stealing those medications from a loved one. So we need to protect our loved ones by keeping our medications locked and being a part of the solution and not the problem.
It's a really exciting project that Alcohol, Drug Addiction and Mental Health Services has with Goodwill Easter Seals. And we've also partnered with Kroger pharmacies. So very soon these disposal kits are going to be available so that you can actually dispose of the rest of the opiates that you don't use.
The Kettering Police Department has also purchased a drug drop box. We know a lot of the problems are with family members who have opiates laying around from a surgery or other health concerns, that they don't use them all and then they're just laying around the house. And people always ask, what can they do to get rid of them? We will have a box in the lobby of the police department that you'll be able to show up and just discard those into the box, and then police officers will dispose of them properly.
People are taking these drugs or shooting up these drugs in all areas of our community. And we've seen them at fast food restaurants. We've seen them in the, quote, the Krogers, the Myers type stores. We've seen them in a parking lot. This is not a hidden problem. I think some people who actually take the opiates are looking for that ultimate high with the understanding that it's not my day to die. So my safety mechanism may very well be, I'm going to do it in a public place. I'm going to do it in a bathroom. I'm going to do it in a restaurant's bathroom. I'm going to do it in a parking lot. So if you see someone who is passed out, in a sense, behind the wheel, wherever, then notify your local law enforcement, because that person may be in jeopardy of dying due to a drug overdose. We used to worry about impaired drivers, and impaired drivers would be high on ethanol. They had too many beers, had whatever. Then we saw a shift, and we saw people driving under the influence of alcohol and some marijuana. We are seeing drivers now, 18 to 24, with fentanyl on board, with other opiates on board. And that to me is another sign of something that's coming down the pike, in a sense, where kids of a younger age are experimenting with stuff they shouldn't and are behind the wheels of our car.
From our crew's standpoint, we have seen the usage where we will have group parties where they administer and use the heroin product socially so that they can call for help for each other because they know of the dangers of heroin. Also, they're using them in public places in hopes that if they do overdose, someone will see them and call 911. And additionally, they're taking the heroin and driving around, and if they have an accident, they know that calls for service will be administered and that someone will call 911 to assist them. So if you see these type of incidents, do not hesitate. Call 911, call our Public Safety Dispatch Center, and call for help for these people.
We were asked quite a bit about signs, what people should look for in loved ones, indicators of they maybe have addictions or problems with narcotics. Some of the things that you should look for are changes in behavior, changes in friends or individuals who they run around with, people who sleep a lot, whose behavior becomes violent. Some of the signs that you should look for are needles that are around the house, spoons that are burnt, tinfoil that's placed in odd locations, or baggies, sometimes with the ends cut off. All these are some indicators, but not all. But if you have any questions and think that somebody is acting differently, you certainly can call the police department. You can get some advice from an officer, or any mental health field would certainly be more than happy to take your call and give you some advice on that as well.
The big challenge is getting people into treatment. We have some people who come in, I need treatment, I need you to help me, and we open our arms to them. But unfortunately, the vast majority really don't want anything to do with that. And the quicker they can get out of the emergency department, the better. That's just a sad thing. We need to continually work at them, family members, neighbors, and provide that kind of safe support system as best we can. But it is a challenge. It's very difficult.
If you need to call a professional like a counselor or a doctor, please do that. If you have a concern, address it immediately.
You know, there's actually a 24-hour number you can call in Montgomery County. It's crisis care. So if you suspect that somebody you love, a friend, a coworker, who's not showing up for work or whose behavior's changed, you know, if you find money disappearing, property disappearing, spoons disappearing, I mean, weird signs, you've got to call somebody soon and now. Don't wait.
That crisis care number is 224-4646. And if you call them, like Andrea said, they're 24/7. And you can find out resources, you can get an assessment from them. It's so important that you take action.
You know, and sadly, you're not alone in this. I mean, there's many of us. It's touching all socioeconomic levels, all geographical boundaries, all ages. If there's an emergency, do not hesitate to call 911. That is probably the most important thing. A lot of people are afraid of what's going to happen to them if they get involved, but somebody will die if you don't take action. So I really encourage you. Law enforcement and fire officials are working to make this a safe way for you to get somebody help. So it's very important to take action before it's too late.
Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the opioid and heroin epidemic that is impacting our Kettering neighborhoods and our families in such a devastating way.
In times of crisis, we, the Kettering community, always find a way to come together to support those in need. As you can tell from this program, the opioid and heroin epidemic is a crisis. It's time to do what Kettering always does. As individuals and as a community, we must face this epidemic head on. We are all in this together.